That morning, the moment I woke up, I knew today was going to be different. Sunlight was slipping through the window, but it didn't feel calm like any ordinary day. It seemed to be urging me to hurry, to say something. I sat on the bed silently for a few seconds. My phone lay beside the pillow, its screen blinking with notifications, but I didn't feel like opening any. It felt like today I wanted to start the day on my own terms. The room was small, but clean. A few old pictures hung on the walls, which I had put up long ago, back when life felt simpler. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. The aroma gradually spread through the room, carrying a strange nostalgia. I remembered how I used to make coffee the same way in the morning, stand by the window and look outside, thinking maybe today everything would change. Today I had made a decision I had been avoiding for a long time. Today I would go out without any particular destination. I would just get into the car and follow whatever road lay ahead. For some reason, it felt like the walls of this city were slowly closing in on me. I could breathe, but I couldn't truly live. Holding my cup, I opened the door and stepped onto the balcony. The streets were still mostly empty. A few cars passed by slowly. Somewhere in the distance, a bus rumbled. The air was cool, yet comforting. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath for a few seconds. I told myself today no plans, no obligations. I quickly dressed, grabbed a small bag, packing only the essentials: wallet, phone, charger, a notebook, and a pen. I didn't know why I took the notebook, but it felt like today I might need to write something, even if only for myself. As soon as I got into the car, an old song I hadn't heard in ages started playing. It made me laugh. Sometimes life is like this. You forget things and suddenly they return, reminding you of who you once were. I slowly drove out of the city onto the highway. Trees lined both sides of the road, and in the distance, something resembling hills appeared. The sun was fully up, the sky blue with few clouds. I rolled down the window, feeling the wind on my face. It felt as if I had stepped into a movie with no script, just me and the road. While driving, I suddenly realized how many years I had been stuck in the same routine. Work in the morning, return home in the evening, sleep tired at night. Occasionally meet friends, but conversations always circled back to the same things: work, money, future. Today I wanted to break that cycle a little. After a while, a small diner caught my eye by the roadside. Old-style, large windows, yellow lights glowing inside. Suddenly I felt very hungry. I stopped the car and went in. Inside there was a peaceful feeling. A few people sat at tables, some drinking coffee, some reading newspapers. I sat at the counter, ordered coffee and a sandwich. Resting my hand on the counter, I looked around. Everyone was in their own world, yet there was a strange connection, as if each person were a different page of the same story. After eating, I paid the bill. On the way out, I realized that if I hadn't come out today, I might never have seen this place. How many beautiful moments in life do we miss just because of fear? Back in the car, I continued driving. The road was emptier now, the sun higher in the sky. My phone rang. A familiar number appeared on the screen, but I didn't answer. Today I didn't want to talk to anyone. Today I wanted to talk only to myself. As I drove, I wondered what I was really searching for. There was no specific answer. Perhaps I was simply seeking a little freedom, a little silence where I could hear my own thoughts. Eventually, I took a small road off the highway. Open fields stretched on both sides, with one or two old houses in sight. I slowed down. Time seemed to flow slowly here. I rolled down the window and listened: birds chirping, a distant train whistle. Suddenly a small lake appeared. A parking space was beside the road. I stopped the car and got out. The water was calm, reflecting the blue sky. There was a bench nearby. I sat on it. I took the notebook out of my bag. I hadn't written in a long time. At first I couldn't write anything, just stared at the water. Then, without even writing my name, I simply wrote, "I went out today." The rest came naturally. I wrote about what I was feeling, what I feared, what I wanted. As I wrote, I realized I had been storing so many words inside me that I had never told anyone. Eventually, the sun started to tilt. I closed the notebook. It felt like today I had found a part of myself again. I got back in the car. I didn't know where I was going, but a strange peace settled inside me. Perhaps the journey itself was more important than knowing the destination. The road stretched ahead, long and open. I accelerated, the song playing again, thinking to myself, maybe today will become one of those days I remember for years. I looked at the road and smiled. Strangely, it felt like the road was calling me somewhere, though I didn't know where. The car meter climbed slowly, but my thoughts raced faster. I wondered if I suddenly left everything today, would anyone even notice? After some distance, clouds began to gather. A light breeze turned into a cool wind. The radio had started the news, but I turned the volume down. I didn't want to listen. Today I wanted to set the weight of reality aside. Suddenly a sign appeared, viewpoint 2 miles ahead. Without thinking, I turned the steering wheel toward it. The road narrowed, tall trees on both sides, sunlight creating shadows through the leaves. It felt like I had entered a movie set. At the viewpoint I parked. A few cars were already there, but it was quiet. In front of me stretched a large mountainous valley, a river glimmering in the distance. I got out and walked slowly to the railing. Standing there looking at such a vast scene, something like a stifled sob rose in my chest. All this time I had trapped myself in small thoughts while the world ahead was so vast. I closed my eyes for a few seconds. I remembered how, as a child, I used to dream big. I thought I would travel far, see new places, create my own story. Somehow those dreams had slowly faded and I hadn't even noticed. I leaned my elbows on the railing, looking down. The river below flowed slowly, with no rush. It felt like the river was teaching me, things don't all have to move at the same pace. After a while, someone stood nearby, but I didn't look. Today I didn't want to recognize anyone or hear their stories. I just wanted to listen to my own inner voice. The wind picked up a little. I wrapped my jacket around me. I took my phone out of my pocket, many missed calls and messages. I locked the screen and put it back. Today I didn't want to explain anything. After standing for a while, I returned to the car. Starting the engine, I felt like I didn't want to leave this place, but also felt that maybe something else awaited ahead. I took the road again, this time a winding mountain road climbing upward. I drove slowly, stopping occasionally to take photos, though I knew no photo could capture this feeling. At one point, a small wooden shop appeared by the roadside. A handwritten board read, "Hot coffee, homemade pie." I felt a sudden craving. I stopped and went inside. Inside, a warm smell greeted me, coffee and baked cake. The shop was small but beautifully arranged. A few tables, a flower pot by the window. I ordered at the counter and sat by the window. With a cup of coffee in hand, I looked at the mountains outside. Suddenly it felt like if I stayed here for a while, time would stop. I took out my notebook again and wrote, "I'm not running away, I'm searching." Writing this line surprised me. Truly, I wasn't running away. I was just looking for something that would teach me to live on my own terms again. Finishing the coffee, I got up. As I left the shop, I glanced back one last time. It felt like even this small place had become part of my story today. Back in the car, I continued along the mountain road. The sun was slowly tilting westward, the light soft, casting a golden hue around. Suddenly, the road split in two. No signboards, no indication of which way led where. I stopped the car, sitting quietly for a few seconds. The right road was wider, the left narrow and covered with trees. A strange excitement stirred inside me. I smiled slightly and turned the steering wheel onto the narrow left path. I didn't know where this road would take me, but today I knew I was no longer afraid. The road ahead darkened, tree shadows falling on the car. A light glimmer appeared in the distance, maybe a small town, maybe nothing. I took a deep breath, pressed the accelerator slightly, and silently said to myself, whatever happens, today I will not stop. The farther the narrow road went, the quieter everything around became. Tree branches bent overhead as if I were driving through a long green tunnel. The headlights cast shadows of small stones and dry leaves in the middle of the road. Other than the sound of the engine, there was nothing to hear. After a while, a light rain began, first a few drops, then a steady tapping on the glass. I turned on the wipers. With the sound of rain, it felt as if the restless thoughts inside my head were being washed away. The smell of wet earth filled the air, that familiar scent that brings back so many childhood memories. I don't know how long I had been driving when I suddenly saw a small light ahead. Slowly I realized it was the entrance to a small town. An old signboard showed the town's name, but in the darkness I couldn't read it clearly. A few shops lined the road, most of them closed. Only a gas station and a motel beside it were open. I looked at the clock. Evening had passed and it was night. Suddenly I realized how tired I was after driving all day without thinking. I stopped at the gas station. Inside, I bought a bottle of water and some snacks. Standing at the counter, I looked at myself in the mirror and felt a little surprised. Tired eyes, messy hair, but a strange calm on my face. It felt like, after a long time, I was really seeing myself. Outside, I looked toward the motel next door. Blue lights glowed, and in big letters it said vacancy. Suddenly it felt like I didn't need to go any farther tonight. Tonight I would stop here. I parked the car and went to the reception. The place was very simple, old pictures on the wall, a small bell on the counter. I rang it, and after a moment someone came out. Without many words, I took a room. With the key in hand, I climbed the stairs. The room was very plain, a bed, a table, an old chair by the window, but today it felt like a palace to me. I set down my bag and placed my jacket on the chair. I went to the window and looked outside. It was still raining, the drops shimmering in the streetlight. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle sounded, long and lonely. I sat on the bed and took off my shoes. My body was exhausted, but my mind felt strangely light. I took out my phone and looked at the notifications again. Many messages, many questions. I opened none of them. Today I didn't want to explain anything, didn't want to make any decisions. I took out my notebook and wrote one last line. Today I stopped, but I did not give up. I closed the notebook. I turned off the light and lay down. Outside, the sound of rain, inside, silence. As I closed my eyes, it felt like after a long time I was truly going to sleep, without any worries. In my sleep, many dreams came. I saw myself as a child again, running across a big field, the sky very blue, and I was laughing. After a long time, I had a dream that didn't scare me, but calmed me. Suddenly I woke in the light of dawn. Soft sunlight came through the gap in the curtains. The rain had stopped. I could hear birds singing. I sat up and stayed silent for a few seconds. It felt like today would bring something new. After washing my face, I looked at myself in the mirror again. The tiredness was still there, but inside I felt a new strength. I didn't know where I would go today, but I knew I was no longer the same person as before. I packed my bag, went downstairs, checked out, and stepped outside. The air was cool and clean. The sky was perfectly blue. As I got into the car, I suddenly noticed a small cafe across the street with a sign on the window, "Breakfast all day." I felt a light hunger. Instead of starting the car, I walked toward the cafe. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee greeted me. People sat at a few tables, talking and laughing. I sat alone at a table. I ordered coffee and some food and sat by the window, looking outside. The town was small but very peaceful. It felt like this place was slowly accepting me. While eating, I wondered whether I would go back on the road today or stay here for a while. For the first time in my life, it felt like I didn't have to decide anything right now. Holding my cup of coffee, I smiled softly. Maybe my real journey would begin today, right here in this small town. I took the last sip of coffee and set the cup down. Outside the window, the morning light was brighter now. More people were appearing on the streets. Some were going to work, some opening shops. The small town was waking up, and I felt like a stranger watching it awaken. After paying, I stepped outside and felt the gentle warmth of the sun on my skin. I stood in front of the cafe door for a few seconds. No rush, no phone calls to answer, no meetings. Very few days in life come when time truly belongs to me. As I walked toward my car, I suddenly noticed a small shop nearby. Old books and maps were displayed in the window with a sign above, "Used books and travel guides." I felt a strange pull. Instead of getting into the car, I went straight inside. Inside, the smell of old paper, wooden shelves full of books. Soft music played somewhere. The shop wasn't big, but the moment I entered, it felt like time moved slowly here. I wandered quietly between the shelves. There was a section with old maps. Large maps hung on the wall, some very old, some new. I opened one and looked. So many roads, so many cities, so many unknown places. It felt like the world was so vast, and I had kept myself trapped in such a small corner for so long. I bought a small notebook and an old travel diary. When I walked back past the cafe, I thought, what if I stayed in this town for a while? Maybe here I would find something I had been searching for all along. I got into the car but didn't start the engine. The road ahead, the town behind me, and many questions in my head. I took a deep breath and told myself I would not hurry today. Suddenly my phone rang again. This time it was a message. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening it. A very short line only, "Are you okay?" Reading those words, a small tremble rose in my chest. I had been holding myself strong, but that question cracked my walls a little. Someone truly wanted to know how I was. I stared at the screen for a long time, not knowing what to write. Finally I typed only, "I'm okay, just traveling a little." I sent it. After sending the message, a strange calm came over me. It felt like I wasn't completely alone, but not completely tied down either. I was standing somewhere in between. I didn't start the engine. Instead, I got out of the car and began walking again along the small streets of the town. A flower shop here, an old movie theater there, a park where a few children were playing. I sat on a bench in the park. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, making patterns of shadow on the ground. I closed my eyes for a while and just listened. Laughter, birds, a distant car horn. I took out my notebook and started writing again. I wrote about how one day I had suddenly left everything, how I stopped in this small town, and how a strange new hope was growing inside me. As I wrote, I suddenly thought, what if I stayed here for a few days? Rent a small room, drink coffee at this cafe in the morning, walk, write, think. Maybe here I could slowly piece together the part of myself I had lost. I closed the notebook and smiled softly at what lay ahead. For the first time, the future didn't scare me, it was calling me. I looked toward the distant mountains. The narrow road I had taken last evening went that way. It felt like more stories might be waiting beyond it. I stood up. I didn't know where I would go today, stay in this town or return to the road. But today I knew this. Whichever path I chose, it would be my own. Walking slowly toward the car, I whispered to myself, this is the beginning. I opened the car door and sat inside, pausing for a moment. Resting my hands on the steering wheel, I took a deep breath. It felt like this small moment was important, as if from here a new chapter of my life would begin. I started the engine but didn't shift into gear. The road ahead was empty, the town slowly falling behind. Suddenly I felt that if I left now, this town might remain only a brief pause. Then I realized even a pause is a part of life. I parked the car again, got out and looked at a small sign nearby. It read, "Room for rent, weekly rates." The sign was in front of an old house. The house wasn't very big, painted white, with a small porch and a few flower pots on it. Without thinking, I walked toward the house. I stepped onto the porch and lightly knocked on the door. After a few seconds, it opened. Warm light spilled out. I hesitated for a moment but composed myself and said I was looking for a room for a few days. After some conversation, they showed me a small room. A bed by the window, a table, light blue walls. Very simple, but stepping inside, it felt like this room would calm me. I didn't overthink it. I said I would stay here for a few days. Holding the key, I entered the room and felt a light excitement, like the first day at a new school. I placed my bag beside the bed. I opened the window. Tree leaves moved outside, distant sounds from the town. This room was now my world for the next few days. Sitting on the bed, I opened my notebook. I wrote, I have stopped, but I am not still. Writing this felt like I had made a pact with myself. By noon, hunger struck. I went out to a nearby small restaurant. Sitting at the counter, eating hot soup and bread, I looked around. No one here knew me, no one knew my past. That unfamiliarity was my greatest freedom today. After eating, I walked along the town streets. At one place, a small art gallery caught my eye. Some paintings hung in the window. I went in. Inside, it was very quiet, white walls, images of mountains, rivers, sky. I stood in front of one painting for a long time, a long road, trees on either side, light in the distance. It felt as if this painting was telling my story. Leaving the gallery, I walked in the afternoon light. The sun had started to tilt slightly. Suddenly, the phone rang again, this time a call. I paused for a moment, then answered. For a few seconds, only the sound of breathing. Then a soft voice asked, "Where are you?" Hearing this question, a slight tremor rose in my chest. I don't know why, but I didn't want to hide the truth. I spoke slowly. I'm in a small town, taking some time for myself. Silence on the other end for a moment, then only, "Take care." "I miss you." Hearing that, my eyes moistened. I couldn't say much, only replied, "I'll call you." After the call ended, I stood in the middle of the street for a while. Crowds passed by, but I felt like I was standing in a separate world. Evening began to fall. The sky had a faint orange hue. I slowly returned to the room. Inside, I turned on the light. The small room filled with warm light. Sitting by the window, I looked outside. The day had passed slowly, but much had changed inside. I opened my notebook again and wrote, "Someone misses me and I am finding myself." I stopped after writing this line, lying on the bed, eyes closed. Outside, the night sounds, inside, the waves of thought. But today those waves didn't scare me. I don't know how long I will stay in this town, but I know from here my new story is truly beginning. The night was deep but sleep light. Occasionally I opened my eyes, looking at the window. The street lights were off, only distant dogs barking and the whisper of wind through the leaves. Even in this silence, my thoughts were awake. At some point, I fell asleep without noticing. In the early morning light, I opened my eyes. Sunlight filtered through the gap in the curtains. Birdsong made me realize this room was no longer unfamiliar. I slowly sat up and looked around. Small room, blue walls, my notebook and pen on the table. Strangely, it felt like I had been here for a long time. I got out of bed and stood by the window. The flower pots on the porch were wet, probably from dew overnight. The road was still empty. The town was waking up anew. I washed my face, freshened up, and went outside. Downstairs, a small kitchen, I made coffee myself. The smell filled the room. Cup in hand, I sat on the porch and soaked in the sunlight. This moment was very ordinary, yet priceless to me. For so long, mornings meant rushing, phone calls, emails. Today, just coffee, sunlight, and me. After finishing the coffee, I opened my notebook, wrote the date then. I am still not running, I am learning to stop. I smiled lightly after writing this line. As the morning progressed, the town sounds began, shops opening, cars moving, people talking. I went out for a walk. I stopped at a small bakery, got a warm pastry and coffee. Looking at myself in the mirror behind the counter, a different light shone on my face, curiosity in my eyes. While eating, I thought about what I would do today. Then I remembered the travel diary I bought at the bookstore yesterday. I felt like I would explore this town properly today, as if to make this place a chapter in my story. After eating, I returned to the room, packed my notebook and camera, and went out, walking along the small streets, some old houses, some new shops, some colorful murals. At one point, I noticed a small library. I went inside. Wooden shelves, soft light, very quiet. I browsed a few books. Suddenly, an old letter slipped out of a book. I didn't know who left it, but it read, "If you are reading this line, know that you are not alone." Reading that, a slight shiver ran through me. Written by a stranger, but it felt meant for me. I placed the letter back inside the book. Walking out of the library, it felt like the town was giving me small signals, telling me I had arrived at the right place. By afternoon, I sat in a park. Watching people from the bench, someone reading, someone on the phone, a child playing. Seeing these ordinary moments gave me a deep sense of joy. Life is really made of such small moments. I opened my notebook and tried to sketch the scene. Not very well, but even trying, it felt like I was learning something new again. Suddenly, the phone vibrated, a message. I took a breath and opened it, the familiar number again. It read, "Thinking of you a lot today." Reading those words, my chest felt heavy, yet a warm feeling also arose inside. I thought for a long time, then wrote, "I'm thinking of you too." After sending the message, I turned off the phone. Today I wanted to leave the past and future aside and hold on to the present. As the afternoon wore on, I walked toward a small hill at the edge of town. A narrow trail, trees on the side, sunlight filtering through. My body grew tired while walking, but my mind felt very light. At the top, I could see the whole town below, small houses, quiet streets, distant hills. I sat on a rock and took a deep breath. Sitting here, I suddenly realized I am no longer the person I used to be, who only knew how to run. Now I know how to stop, to observe, to feel. The sun was slowly setting. The sky turned orange and pink. I sat silently for a long while. By the time I went down, the sky had darkened. Town lights glowed. Walking back to the streets, I felt a slight chill. Back in the room, I closed the door, turned on the light, and sat on the bed. I began writing today's day in the notebook, every small event, every feeling. While writing, tears welled up, but these were not of sorrow, rather of gratitude. I turned off the light and lay down. My mind felt very calm. Before sleeping, I whispered to myself, "Thank you, this town." That night, my sleep was very deep. No nightmares, no chasing, just calm darkness, and inside a soft feeling, as if after many days I had finally arrived at the right place to rest. Early in the morning, I woke to the gentle sound of rain. Tiny drops gathered on the window glass. The sky was cloudy, the light soft and gray. I got out of bed and stood by the window. The town looked even more beautiful in the rain, closer somehow. I slowly got ready and stepped outside. The smell of wet earth filled the air. The streets glistened, leaves sparkling. I had no umbrella, but the rain was light, so I let myself get wet. Walking, I headed toward the park from yesterday. Today it was empty, with only a few people strolling in the distance. I sat on a bench. Raindrops fell from the leaves, making tiny sounds. I opened my notebook, wrote the date, then sat silently, pen in hand. I didn't know what to write. So much inside me, yet the words wouldn't come. Without realizing, I wrote, "I no longer want to run. I want to understand what I truly want." Reading this, I realized I had never been able to tell myself this before. As the rain grew slightly, I got up and started walking. At the very edge of the town, there was a small river I had seen yesterday while descending from the hills. Today, I felt like going there. It took some walking to reach the river. Wet grass on either side of the path, occasionally small wooden bridges. The water was calm, rippling with raindrops. I sat on a stone, removed my shoes, and dipped my feet in the water. The cold made me shiver, but it felt good. It was as if not just the outside, but my inner self was being washed clean. For so long, I had tried to control everything: time, people, the future. Sitting here, I realized that peace comes when you can let go of some things. Suddenly, I remembered that phone call, those words, "I miss you," a soft tug in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, whether I would go back or continue on this new path, but I didn't want to deny this feeling anymore. Looking at the river, I whispered to myself, "I am afraid, but I am ready." The rain began to stop, clouds slowly parted, and the sun appeared in the distance. I stood up. Clothes wet, hair messy, but I felt lighter. On the way back, I noticed a small wooden sign, "Hiking trail, 3 miles." Suddenly, I felt I would take that trail tomorrow. I didn't know what lay beyond the hills, but now I had the courage to see the unknown. Back in the room, I changed clothes and made hot tea. Sitting by the window, I drank the tea while watching the rain stop. I wrote in my notebook again, "I am slowly getting to know myself." The afternoon passed peacefully. I read a little, wrote a little, and for some time just stared out the window. Later in the afternoon, I picked up the phone. I stared at the screen for a long time, then bravely typed, "I might come back in a few days, then we'll talk a lot." After sending, I exhaled deeply. It felt like I had opened a door a little. As the sun set, I sat again on the porch, the sky red and purple, city lights glowing. This town was no longer just a place to pause, it had witnessed my inner change. I didn't know where this journey would lead me, but today I knew I was no longer running blindly like before. I was walking toward myself. The next morning, I woke up knowing this day would be different. The air carried a new scent, the sky outside the window perfectly clear blue. The town looked washed and even more beautiful after the rain. I got ready slowly. Today I had decided I would take that trail. I packed some water, an apple, my notebook, and pen. Before closing the door, I glanced at the small room. It had become so familiar in just a few days. I walked toward the road leading to the hills. Early in the morning, the road was almost empty, only an occasional dog walker or jogger. I reached the start of the trail, paused a moment. A wooden sign displayed directions and a few warnings. I took a deep breath and began walking. The trail was beautiful, tall trees on either side, dry leaves beneath, occasional bird calls. Walking, my body warmed, breathing grew heavier, yet I felt alive. After a while, the path steepened. I walked slowly, stopping occasionally for water. At one point, I looked back. The small town below looked like toy houses, streets like thin lines. Seeing this, a strange feeling welled up inside. My problems, once mountains in my mind, now seemed so small from up here. I climbed a little higher and reached an open space. Vast sky ahead, rows of hills in the distance. I sat on a large rock, sweat on my brow, heart racing, but a smile on my face. Sitting here, I vividly recalled my old life, the office, the noise, phone rings, the same routine. It felt like I was thinking of a dream far away. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Today being this high, I realized the things I left below can no longer hold me back." I paused my pen. I listened to the silence around me, only the sound of leaves and my own breathing. Suddenly I realized if I stayed here all day, no one would look for me, no one would know where I was. Yet this thought didn't frighten me, it felt strangely peaceful. After a while, I started descending. My knees trembled a little, but my heart felt light. At the trail's end, I realized I hadn't just come down from the hill, I had shed much of the weight inside me. By afternoon, I returned to my room. After a shower and putting on clean clothes, my body felt renewed. I went to a small cafe for lunch. Sitting by the window, watching people, I realized they might not know, but they had become part of a major chapter of my life. After lunch, a sudden strong urge came. I needed to make a decision today. Everything cannot remain in suspense forever. Back in the room, I sat on the bed. I held the phone, stared at the screen for a long time, then slowly dialed a number. Rang once, twice, 3 times. My heart pounded fiercely. Suddenly, the call was answered. A few seconds of silence, then that familiar voice, slightly surprised. "You." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Slowly I said, "Yes, it's me." "Will you talk?" A very soft reply came. "I've been waiting all this time." Hearing that, tears welled up. Years of unspoken words, fear, uncertainty, all shook inside me at once. I didn't know where this conversation would lead, whether I would return or stay on this new path, but in this moment I knew I was no longer running. I was facing it, facing myself and my future. I held the phone to my ear, standing silently. On the other side, only breathing close, familiar. Even this silence, after so long, seemed to speak. I broke the silence first. Slowly I said, I know calling suddenly wasn't right, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. A faint laugh on the other side, soft and trembling. I thought you'd never call again. Those words twisted something deep inside me. I stood by the window, afternoon light outside, shadows of trees moving. I said I didn't know what I would do. I only knew I needed to go away for a few days, otherwise I would have lost myself. A very calm voice replied, I understood. But understanding and enduring are not the same. Those words stopped me. How much pain had been trapped in them, and I had avoided seeing it all this time. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, very sorry. I was scared, silence for a while, then very softly, what were you afraid of? I looked out at the hills, the distant blue sky. I was afraid if I stood by your side, I might not be happy. Afraid I might hurt you, afraid I might take my life down the wrong path. A long sigh on the other side. You know, I never wanted anything perfect from you. I just wanted the truth. Hearing this, my throat tightened. Such simple words, yet I had been running from them for so long. I said, I'm in a small town now, hills, river, very peaceful. Coming here, I finally understood what I was about to lose. How are you? Came the soft question. I smiled lightly. I am a little broken, but truer than before. The same soft laugh again. That's what I've always wanted. For a while we stayed silent, but the silence was no longer heavy, rather comforting. I thought to myself, some things don't change even after so long. Suddenly the voice said, will you come back? The question seemed to stop time. My heart pounded again. I didn't know how to answer. I looked at my reflection in the window glass, fear in my eyes, but courage alongside it. I said slowly, I don't know yet, but I will no longer run away. I will come back. Not promised, but I want to. A very calm reply came, that is enough for me. Hearing this, my chest felt light. I had thought I needed to make big promises. Yet sometimes just honesty is the greatest gift. I said, when I return, I want to talk to you about everything. Lay it all open. I will wait, came the soft reply. And take care of yourself. Before ending the call, I said, thank you for not letting me go. On the other side, the words came, thank you for coming back. The call ended. I held the phone down and stood quietly for a long while. A strange peace filled my chest. It felt as if a large knot in my life had loosened. Sitting on the bed, I opened my notebook. Hands slightly trembling, but the pen moved. I wrote, today I spoke about fear, truth, and love. Wiping my tears after writing, I realized they were not of shame, but of courage. Evening descended. Red light in the sky, city lights glowing. I went outside for a walk, small shops by the street, a radio playing somewhere, people laughing elsewhere. Walking, I felt the world had changed a little today. No, not the world, I had changed. I stood on a small bridge, looking at the river. The city lights shimmered on the water. I whispered softly as if to myself, I am no longer alone. Back in the room at night, I turned off the light and lay down. In my mind, no longer chaos, only soft thoughts and a gentle hope. Before sleep, I realized this journey was not just toward myself, but also a way back to someone else that night. Sleep came slowly but peacefully. The words from the phone call kept returning to my mind, yet they no longer hurt. Instead, they left a soft warmth in my chest. I didn't know what the future would hold, but at least today, I was no longer in darkness. Early in the morning, my eyes opened to soft light. Outside the window, the sky was pale blue, the sun hadn't fully risen. The town still slept, only the distant sound of a truck breaking the silence. I lay on the bed for a while, staring at the roof. It felt as though I had begun to find answers to many questions within myself. I got up and opened the window. Cold air brushed my face. I inhaled deeply. Today there was no rush, no fear, just a hint of decision. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. Sitting on the balcony with the cup in hand, I watched the sunlight rise. Birds flew from branch to branch, the street slowly waking below. These small moments now felt immense. Finishing my coffee, I opened my notebook. Today I wrote clearly, I am thinking of going back. But this time not to run, only to return. Reading my own words after so long, I recognized my own voice. By afternoon, I found myself at a small bus station on the edge of town. Unconsciously, my feet led me there. Inside, I looked at the board with destination names. Many cities, many roads, many possibilities. At a counter, I checked the schedule. My town's name was there, an afternoon bus. Seeing that name, my heart thumped. The thing I had been running from for so long was now written clearly before me. I didn't buy a ticket. I only checked the time and stepped back outside. Walking through the streets, I wondered, am I truly ready to return, or am I still afraid to leave this quiet town? I went to the familiar bench in the park, people around, children laughing, leaves rustling. I closed my eyes and asked my heart what it wanted. The answer came slowly. I no longer want to run, but I do not want to rush either. I stood up. Not today. Today I would still stay here. But I knew soon enough I would return. Back in the room, I tidied my bag a little, not fully, just enough to remind myself that this stay had an end. In the afternoon, I walked again toward the hills. The sun was bright, the sky clear. Standing at the trailhead, I realized how much this path had taught me. At the summit, I sat for a long time. The city below, hills ahead, vast sky overhead. Slowly, I whispered, I am preparing. Hearing my own words gave me courage. On the way back, my phone vibrated. A message. I opened it. I've been thinking about you all day. How are you? I smiled. Without overthinking, I typed, I'm well and I will probably return soon. Sending it, I exhaled deeply. For me, these few words were the biggest decision. In the evening, back in my room, I sat by the window and watched the sunset. The sky shifted from red to blue as city lights flickered on. I wrote the final line in my notebook. This town has taught me to pause and given me courage to return. I turned off the light and lay down. Tonight, there would be no dreams of running. Only the path of return. Morning came quietly. The first thought that crossed my mind was clear. Today I was very close to my decision. Outside the window, the sky was clear, the air calm. The town was slowly waking, and a new morning seemed to rise within me too. I got ready slowly. No rush, but a light thrill inside. I reorganized the bag, not everything, just removing unnecessary items, a reminder that soon I would leave this place. I went down and stood on the balcony one last time. This house, the flower pots, the little street, everything had become a significant part of my life in such a short time. I felt I had begun to say goodbye, though I wasn't leaving yet. I stepped out. Today, the town seemed different, as if I was seeing it anew. I went to the cafe where my first morning had been spent. Sitting at the same window table, cup in hand, I sat silently for a long time. So many thoughts, decisions, and changes had happened here. When the waiter came to take an order, I only had coffee. Today, I didn't feel like taking on anything heavy. While sipping coffee, I pulled out my phone. No new messages, yet I held the screen as if waiting for a sound. Suddenly, I thought, what if I write a letter today? I didn't know to whom, but even for myself, it would matter. I left the cafe, entered a bookstore, and bought a beautiful envelope and paper. Then I went to the familiar park bench. Holding the pen, I couldn't write for a long time. Then slowly I began, just for myself. I wrote where I had been running from, how this town had made me pause, how I had found courage again. I wrote about the phone call, the waiting, the message. Finally, I wrote, if I ever get lost again, this letter will remind me that I was once very brave. I folded the letter, placed it in the envelope, and put it in my bag. I wouldn't send it. It was only for me for some future day. Afternoon drifted into evening. I went toward the hills again, but today I didn't climb. I stood at the trailhead. I realized that not all goodbyes need to be made at the summit. Sometimes pausing at the beginning is enough. On the way back, I sat briefly by the river. Sunlight shimmered on the water. I dipped my feet in, remaining quiet. It felt as if the town was taking many things from me as a farewell gift. Back in my room, I began packing properly for the first time. As I folded clothes, a strange feeling came over me. The person who had arrived here was no longer the same. In the evening, a gentle knock at the door. Startled, I opened it. On the balcony stood someone holding a small package with a shy smile, the person who had given me the room. Simply they said, "You're leaving tomorrow, aren't you?" I was slightly surprised. "Yes, probably." They handed me the package. "Eat this on the road, you brought good light here." Hearing this, my throat tightened. I hadn't expected such words in such a short time. I slowly took the package. "Thank you so much." Closing the door, I opened it. Inside were some homemade cookies and a small note. On the note was written, "Wherever you go, be yourself." Reading this, my eyes welled up. I placed the note in my notebook. Night fell. The city lights glowed. This was my last night here. I lay on the bed, staring at the roof. By this time tomorrow, I would be elsewhere. A slight fear lingered in my chest, but next to it, a deep calm. Before sleep, one last thought, am I making the right choice? Yes, this time I am not running, I am returning. Morning came quietly. No alarms, no rush. Yet my eyes opened as if my body already knew. Today was the day of farewell. A soft light filled the room. Outside, the sky was pale pink. I lay for a while, taking in the roof, the walls, one last time. Strangely, my chest felt both light and heavy, both at once. Slowly, I lifted my bag onto my shoulder. Everything packed, only the notebook in hand. Before leaving, I wrote a line at the table. Here, I found myself again. I put down the pen, looked around once more. Holding the door handle, I paused. Deep breath, then stepped out. Downstairs, I saw the person one last time. We exchanged a simple farewell. They only smiled and said, "Take care. And if you ever get lost, come back again." I nodded, unable to speak. Outside, the air was cold, the morning very calm. Walking toward the car, it felt as if the town was slowly closing its doors behind me, not in anger, but with love. Sitting in the car, I started the engine. Few cars on the road. Gradually, I left the town behind, heading toward the highway. In the rearview mirror, I looked at the town one last time. Small houses, shadows of hills, the shimmering river. A gentle pressure in my chest, but no tears. This farewell was not sadness, but gratitude. As I drove, I picked up speed. The long highway ahead, trees on both sides, sky so vast. It felt as though I wasn't just returning, I was returning as a new person. Turning on the radio, an old song began to play, one I used to listen to long ago. I laughed. Life sometimes has perfect timing. After a while, my phone vibrated. I stopped the car and opened the message. "Thinking of you today. May your journey be good." Reading these few words, my chest softened. I immediately typed, "I have set off." Sending it, I put the phone aside. There was no hesitation now. Hours passed along the highway. The scenery changed, hills to plains, forests to open fields. The sun rose higher, the light bright. At one point, I stopped for gas, had coffee. Standing at the counter, I realized I was no longer looking at the unfamiliar face of before. This face was mine, and I was no longer fighting with it. Back in the car, I continued. By afternoon, the sign for my city appeared in the distance. My heart thumped. After so long, I was returning. Entering the city, familiar streets, familiar buildings, familiar sky. Everything was the same, but I was different. I parked the car and sat for a moment. Hands on the steering wheel, eyes closed. I thought quietly, I have returned. I got out and began walking slowly. Streets, cars, sounds, all like my old life, but today they no longer weighed on me. I stood before the familiar house. The door was familiar, yet today it felt as though it would open anew for me. I raised my hand and knocked, footsteps inside. The door opened. Before me stood the familiar face. Eyes widened, then joy, then a slight mist. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. Then softly came the words, "You really came back." I smiled lightly. Yes, this time I'm not running anywhere. Saying this, all the fear inside me seemed to lighten at once. We still didn't know what lay ahead. How many words, how many questions, how many new beginnings awaited. But in this moment, standing at the door, I knew my journey had brought me exactly where I was meant to be. We both sat quietly for a while. Outside, the sun had begun to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. A gentle chill floated in the air, and inside the room there was peace. This moment didn't need any words. I slowly set my bag down. The letter inside caught my eye. I took it out and looked at it. It read, "Wherever you go, be yourself." I smiled to myself. Today I realized this letter was not just for me. It reflected this entire journey, a journey for myself. They sat beside me, silently watching. I said, "I've found so much peace, courage, and thoughts of you." That soft smile appeared again in their eyes. "I knew you'd come back. But honestly, I didn't think you'd return with such courage." I reached out and took their hand. Suddenly, the weight in my chest seemed to lift. All the worry, hesitation, fear vanished in that single moment. We sat quietly together. Outside the window, the night lights began to glow, car lights flickering in the distance. Everything around us was completely calm. I knew this peace would stretch far inside me. Then I said, "I know life won't become easy again. There will still be things to understand, challenges to face, but today I am ready." They nodded slowly. Me too. We sat in that quiet for a while longer. No words were necessary. I knew from today there was no need to run anymore. As the night deepened, we slowly went inside. I sat in a chair by the window, opened my notebook, and wrote, "Today I have returned. I will no longer run. From today I will live each moment, relate truthfully with every person, and maintain peace within myself." I put down my pen, closed the window, and lay down on the bed. Tonight felt unlike any other. Closing my eyes, it seemed as if my whole life were beginning anew in a single breath. I knew there would be no more days of running. I had truly returned for myself, for my life, and for love. As sleep approached, it felt as if tomorrow's sunrise would rise in entirely new colors, colors of peace, hope, and a fresh journey. When the morning sun rose, I stepped onto the streets of that small town for the last time. The air was crisp, the sky blue, and everything around serene. Today I was returning, but this town had become a significant chapter in my life. I got into the car and started the engine. Slowly, other cars began moving along the streets. Each step, every turn of the wheels, it felt as if everything was guiding me toward that new beginning. On the highway, driving steadily, I reflected on the meaning of this journey. I had been running for so long afraid, but today I knew running is never the solution. Courage, patience, and being truthful with oneself, these are the three keys to the path. At one point my phone vibrated. I stopped and checked it, a message. "I know you are returning, I will wait." Smiling lightly, I wrote, "I am on my way." This time I will not run. Sending it, I set the phone aside. After so long, I felt complete peace in my decision. As the city's signboards came into view, my heart began to pound. Everything was familiar, yet today I was a new person. I was returning not with fear, but with the strength I had discovered within. Parking the car, I started walking slowly. Each street, each turn guided me through old memories. Small shops, old wooden benches, the river in the distance, all so familiar, yet today I observed them more intentionally. Arriving at the familiar house, I opened the door and saw that face. Eyes widened, then a smile. A strange calm settled in my chest. Slowly I said, "I have returned." This time I will not run. Looking into their eyes, I understood the long wait, the hardships, they were all lightened today. I knew the days ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. Before nightfall, we all sat quietly together. Outside the window, the sky glowed with red and pink. This light felt like a new sunrise inside us. Lying on the bed, I closed my eyes. From today, there was no need to run. I had returned for myself, for life, and for love. As I drifted to sleep, I realized this journey hadn't just brought me back to the town. It had given me the courage to overcome the fears within. I knew tomorrow's sunrise would rise in entirely new colors, colors of peace, hope, and a fresh journey.